Emergency switch, the UK set to unveil plans to cap soaring energy bills, but at what cost as the value of the pound slumps? And gadget envy or upgrade fatigue, Apple launches expensive new iPhones and watches. But will consumers want to splash the cash this winter? Hello, welcome along to World Business Report. We're keeping a very close eye on events in the House of Commons here in the UK, where the Prime Minister Liz Truss is due to unveil a multi-billion-dollar plan to protect consumers and businesses from soaring energy prices. Now, typical household energy bills are expected to be capped near current rates, and companies are likely to get help too. But the big question, the cost of subsidising those bills is likely to be astronomical, and lots of now concern over who exactly will pay. Now, it's hoped that the move will help ease inflation and ward off a deep recession. But of course, that worry for the new PM is the value of the pound, as you can see here, dropping to a 37-year low on Wednesday. It's a pretty damning verdict on the UK's economic prospects. One expert told us the government simply has no choice now but to intervene in energy markets.
Well, it certainly can't afford not to, because not doing so will take inflation to sky-high levels. As you've seen, there's been headlines in the 18 and 20+% range. We can't afford that. That hurts every man, woman and child on the streets. We can't do that to the economy. We can't do that to the people. So there has to be some intervention. Now, the question is, who pays for this intervention? Unfortunately, without tax rises or without any other type of intervention, it is going to eventually come out of taxpayers' money, but through the borrowing rent. Today, the UK debt continues to be in favour with foreign investors who are buying it while interest rates rise. However, we can't make sure that that's the case if this continues much longer. Now, keep in mind, as interest rates go up, you're supposed to see the currency going up. That's the usual correlation, a positive correlation between currency and the interest rates. In our case, it's going the other way. The currency is going down while the interest rates are rising, as they expect the Bank of England to continue to raise rates to try to temper inflation. That signals a lack of confidence in the markets, in our economy, and therefore being expressed through the pound. Now, of course, keep in mind that the pound is a reflection not just of itself, but also the other pair that it's trading against. And the investors globally are expressing that the US dollar continues to be a strong safe haven currency, and that's where most of the flows are going, into the dollar.
So something for the new Prime Minister to keep an eye on, as well as a big inbox of other concerns. Let's take you now to Europe, where much higher borrowing costs are on the way for the 19 countries that use the euro. The European Central Bank is expected to raise its key interest rate by a record 0.75% later today. There are more rises to come, we're told. For years, Eurozone rates have been below zero as governments and firms struggled with a debt crisis and then, of course, the COVID pandemic. But in July, the European Central Bank raised rates to zero. That was the first increase in 11 years. Well, Christian Schulz is Deputy Chief European Economist at Citi. He told us what he thought the ECB will do now.
We do expect this 75 basis point increase today as well, the record increase. It will reflect higher inflation, not just higher spot inflation. We're heading for 10%, but also longer term, because this energy crisis isn't going to go away anytime soon, longer term inflation. So it's justified. But as you say, it poses certain challenges. Some we see everywhere in the world, such as rising borrowing costs for the government, which is under pressure anyway. But in Europe, we've got this special risk that every country is borrowing in the same market at its own risk, and some are perceived riskier than others, in particular Greece and Italy. And so as the ECB is raising interest rates, their borrowing costs rise more than those of countries which are considered safe, such as Italy. And that poses challenges, of course, for the cohesion of the euro area. The ECB itself has created a backstop. In fact, three. We have three backstop now from the ECB, various programs that they can use in order to counter speculation in the market that the euro falls apart. So we're pretty safe from that. But it still depends, of course, on the will of the countries to stay together. And if borrowing costs diverge, if it costs the Italian state more to, say, help households with high energy costs than it does the German Italian government, there will be people in Italy, where there's elections in a few weeks, who will think, is it really worth staying in the euro and having that stable currency if we have high inflation anyway, and we have to pay more than the Germans for the same things? That is the big risk. It's not the markets.
Christian Schultz speaking to us a little earlier. Now to the world of tech, because the tech giant Apple has unveiled a new generation of iPhones and smartwatches. It did so at a pretty packed event at its Californian headquarters last night. Well, the iPhone 14, amongst its new features, it can send emergency calls via satellite, even if you have no mobile or cell reception. Our tech reporter James Clayton was there.
This is Apple's CEO Tim Cook pressing the flesh with fans. It's not happened for a while.
Good to see you too. Here, I'll take it for you.
These Apple events have become legendary, but there hasn't been one in person for 3 years until now. Look around, there are actual people here.
There was a time when these launches had the potential to revolutionise tech. Think the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad. Yet these days the shows are a little less inspiring. There were, however, some interesting things announced. Take this, a new feature on the iPhone and Apple Watch that can detect whether the user has been in a car crash and will alert the emergency services.
There were a few aesthetic changes to the iPhone 14, nothing massive, but the thing that caught our eye is satellite connectivity. If you're off the grid, in theory, this new phone will be able to text the emergency services. That could be hugely helpful.
Many of these announcements felt pretty niche, things that you might have to use in a specific emergency, but that you'll probably never need.
What about the satellite connectivity? Is that a game changer?
For some edge case, yes. From some edge case,
If you're lost in the wild.
there's going to be some stories of people writing in where like, I didn't have any cell connection and I used the feature and it saved my life, and that's going to be real for some people.
There were other announcements too, like a feature for the watch that uses an inbuilt thermometer to track ovulation. That is useful, no doubt, but many privacy activists warn against putting any information about fertility in a digital format. The worry is that in the US and other countries, law enforcement could subpoena the information if they suspect an illegal abortion has taken place. Apple, though, says the data is encrypted. The company will be happy the event ran smoothly and in person, and there were some interesting features on display. But perhaps the days when Apple events came with the expectant, game-changing gadgets are a thing of the past. James Clayton, BBC News, Cupertino, California.
Well, let's stay in the United States, where the reality TV megastar turned entrepreneur Kim Kardashian is moving into investing. Why is she doing it? How is she doing it? The BBC's business correspondent Michelle Fleury explains now from New York.
Kim Kardashian needs little introduction. She found fame in 2007 when her reality TV show began airing. She's also a successful businesswoman with her own makeup line and shapewear company. And now, well, she's moving into the world of finance to launch her own private equity firm. To do this, she has teamed up with ex-Carlyle executive Jay Sammons, who is best known for investing in hot brands, including the headphone maker Beats by Dre, as well as the streetwear firm Supreme. Called Sky Partners, it will invest in areas like consumer, media and entertainment businesses. Mr. Sammons reportedly approached Kim Kardashian and her mother, Kris Jenner, about starting the company earlier this year. Miss Jenner is also a partner in the firm. The Kardashians, as I mentioned, first found fame on their hit reality TV show, which started airing in 2007. With Sky Partners, the duo are hoping that their ability to influence our society and culture will help them build an even wider following.
Michelle Fleury there in New York. Let's just bring you up to date with some other business stories. The EU has opened an office in Qatar in what is widely seen as evidence of the Gulf states' growing importance in the deepening international energy crisis. The European Council's president also met with the Qatari emir to discuss energy cooperation. Now we're just going to head straight over to the UK House of Commons, where the new Prime Minister Liz Truss is on her feet, expected to announce very shortly a new plan, a plan to cap energy bills. We think it'll be capped at about £2,500. Let's take a listen.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the motion. Earlier this week, I promised I would deal with the soaring energy prices faced by families and businesses across the UK. And today I am delivering on that promise. This government is moving immediately to introduce a new energy price guarantee that will give people certainty on energy bills. It will curb inflation and boost growth. This guarantee, which includes a temporary suspension of green levies, means that from the 1st of October, a typical household will pay no more than £2,500 per year for each of the next 2 years while we get the energy market back on track. This will save a typical household £1,000 a year. It comes in addition to the £400 energy bill support scheme. This guarantee supersedes the Ofgem price cap and has been agreed with energy retailers. We will deliver this. Mr. Speaker, I will make way in a few minutes when I have made some progress. Mr. Speaker, we will deliver this by securing the wholesale price for energy while putting in place long-term measures to secure future supplies at more affordable rates. We are supporting this country through this winter and next, and tackling the root causes of high prices so we are never in the same position again. For those using heating oil, living in park homes, or those on heat networks, we will set up a fund so that all
Prime Minister, sorry about this. Can I just say, I don't want a running commentary from here and giving me the advice. I certainly don't need it. Prime Minister, I don't want to interrupt you. It's up to you to give way when you feel it's appropriate. But just to let you know that it is now being printed, the WMS, and I'm hoping that we'll bring it into the chamber for everybody to see. Prime Minister.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For those using heating oil, living in park homes, or those on heat networks, we will set up a fund so that all UK consumers can benefit from equivalent support. I'll give way to the honourable gentleman.
I thank you for giving way. National Energy Action estimate with the cap at the current level there's 6.5 million households in fuel poverty. So raising the cap to £2,500, how many more millions of people will end up in fuel poverty, does you reckon?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we are taking action to help people on the lowest incomes through universal credit, and we are also supplying £400 through the energy bills support scheme. Mr. Speaker, I would like to make some progress and then I will take more interventions. We will also support all businesses, charities and public sector organisations with their energy costs this winter, offering an equivalent guarantee for 6 months. After those 6 months, we will provide further support to vulnerable sectors such as hospitality, including our local pubs. My right honourable friend, the Business Secretary, will work with business to review where this should be targeted to make sure those most in need get support. This review will be concluded within 3 months, giving businesses certainty. In the meantime, companies with the wherewithal need to be looking for ways they can improve energy efficiency and increase direct energy generation. I will give way to my honourable friend.
I'm grateful to the Prime Minister giving way, and I commend her on the speed with which she and her new team really grip this challenge that's facing the country. And doesn't it demonstrate, Mr. Speaker, that Conservative governments do not stand by while millions of people on low incomes are threatened? The measures she's taken.
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right. I recognise that people are struggling with their energy bills, and that is why I have brought forward this debate as soon as possible to give people reassurance ahead of this winter that energy bills are going to be affordable. And we will be bringing forward emergency legislation to deliver this policy. My right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, will set out the expected costs as part of his fiscal statement later this month. And I can tell the House today that we will not be giving in to the Leader of the Opposition who calls calls for this to be funded through a windfall tax. That would undermine the national interest by discouraging the very investment we need to secure homegrown energy supplies. If the honourable members will allow me to make a bit more progress, I may be able to answer their questions before they've asked them. But, Mr. Speaker, the party opposite need to understand...
Prime Minister. Sorry, Prime Minister. A point of order, Kevin Brennan.
Copies have been made available to some members of the written ministerial statement, but there aren't enough for everybody. Is it possible, if I might finish this point of order, is it possible that sufficiently so that we can all see it?
As we both know, it's not a point of order, but it's certainly a clarification that they're now coming out, and we're printing them as fast as possible to make sure all members have the ability to read it. It is with great disappointment, but that's a matter of fact. Prime Minister. Prime Minister.
Instead of that approach, we are taking an approach which is pro-growth, pro-business, and pro the investment we need for our country's energy security. I will give way.
Very grateful to the Prime Minister. Does she agree that we are too short of energy but have plenty of taxes? And does she agree that if we had an oversupply of taxes, as the party opposite wants, we'd have less supply of the things we were taxing?
My right honourable friend makes an extremely good point. The reality is we can't tax our way to growth. And the policy I am setting out today is all about helping people with their energy costs, as I promised, and making sure that we have the long-term energy supplies that we need for our country. I'll give way to the honourable gentleman at the back.
Thank you to the Prime Minister for giving way. Just 6 months ago, households faced energy bills of £1,300. We are today being told that fixing prices at £2,500 is the best that the government can do. It's not. So why is the Prime Minister putting private energy profits ahead of people at this crucial time?
Well, what we are doing is we're doing the important work to help people and businesses get through this winter and next winter, whilst fixing Britain's long-term energy supplies. I've already given way a number of occasions. I will give way later. Please hold off for a bit longer. Mr. Speaker, this is the moment to be bold. We are facing a global energy crisis, and there are no cost-free options. There will be a cost to this intervention. I will give way.
I strongly welcome this package of bills to help cover. It's a marked contrast to the meagre scrappings offered by the benches opposite. Can she? I just welcome also that she's confirmed that schools and colleges will get help with their energy bills, as the colleges face increases of 300%. And could I just finally ask her, will she continue to bear down on fuel duty? Because we know that motorists at the pumps face extortionate bills when they fill up their cars.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his point, and I'm sure the Chancellor of the Exchequer is listening intently to his point ahead of his fiscal statement later this month. Mr. Speaker, I want to make some progress on explaining how we will defray the cost of this intervention, which I think might answer some of the honourable people's questions before they ask them. So the way we are going to defray the cost of this intervention is first of all by ramping up supply. Following on from the successful vaccine task force, we have created a new energy supply task force under the leadership of Maddie McTernan. They are already negotiating new long-term energy contracts with domestic and international gas suppliers to immediately bring down the cost of intervention. We are also accelerating all sources of domestic energy, including North Sea oil and gas production. We will be launching a new licensing round, which we expect to lead to over 100 new licences being awarded. And we will speed up our deployment of all clean and renewable technologies, including hydrogen, solar, carbon capture and storage, and wind, where we are already a world leader in offshore generation. Renewable and nuclear generators will move on to contracts for difference to end the situation where electricity prices are set by the marginal price of gas. This will mean that generators are receiving a fair price, reflecting their cost of production, further bringing down the cost of this intervention. I will give way to my honourable friend.
I warmly welcome the immediate action announced by the Prime Minister on the cost of energy, which is really going to help families in the Pendle constituency and right across the United Kingdom. Next week in Parliament is Nuclear Week, so will she join with me in supporting the rollout of small modular reactors championed by Rolls-Royce, who have 2 sites in my constituency? We need this technology now, so will she go further and faster to drive forward the nuclear programme in this country?
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right. Small modular reactors are a very important part of our energy mix. They're produced here in the United Kingdom. They will help boost growth as well as boost our energy security. And secondly, I will take a few more interventions in a few minutes, but please let me make progress on my speech. Secondly, today's
The new British Prime Minister Liz Truss outlining a new UK energy plan. Rob Watson is watching for us. Firstly, Rob, can you just explain what's been going on? What this notion of people interjecting and interrupting her and her giving way? Could you just explain what's been happening?
It's the way the UK parliamentary system works, that when there's a major policy, the person behind that policy, in this case the Prime Minister, lays it out in front of Parliament, the House of Commons, and it's tradition that you allow people to interrupt you, and it may look very, very odd to people watching, and it may sort of disrupt the flow, but it is one of those traditions. It goes back many, many, many years, and some ministers kind of take more interruptions than others. I guess people will be noticing that she seems happier to take some more from her own side, but hey, she's new to the job.
And what have we been hearing, Rob? So much pressure on her over the cost of energy. What's her plan to tackle that?
So I think, as we already outlined at the start, that the big picture for domestic users here in the UK, so you and me and everybody who's got a house, the sort of millions of households, is that the price will be capped for an average house at £2,500. So that's about $2,800. I think what we've learned since she got on her feet, which we weren't sure about before, is that there will also be help on the same basis for businesses, for schools, for sort of, buildings public buildings that are needed, but that will last for 6 months. And then if there's a need for continuing help for certain sectors, so I don't know, bars, pubs, the kind of things where you have to heat it all the time, that will be reviewed and they may be able to get further help. But it's I guess, look, to step back, it is a massive intervention by the state, because they're talking about having this sort of price freeze, which the government will then pick up the difference of the real cost of energy for 2 years. I mean, potentially 2 winters. If they were cold, it's going to be one big bill.
Briefly, Rob, what will be the big criticism of her plan?
Well, the criticism from the opposition will be that it's kind of crazy to make future taxpayers pay this rather than the companies that have got these huge profits. The criticism from the right will be that it's just nuts for the state to intervene in energy markets this dramatically, and that it's going to be utterly ruinous to borrow this much money.
Rob, always good to have your analysis. We'll let you get back to listening to the new Prime Minister as she announces this massive plan around energy. Just to confirm, she is promising to cap average household energy bills, and the support, she has said, will last for 2 years. Businesses as well, crucially, she says, will be getting a support package, and they'll be looking at the wholesale price of energy as well. Do stay with us. We'll be live in Kyiv shortly because Antony Blinken is there.